Hey everyone, Paulie here from HardDrive Radio. I am delighted to be sitting down in the studio today with Sean Dowdell from the band Grey Daze. Sean, thanks very much for coming to see us, man.
Thanks for having me here. I really appreciate it.
It's a very exciting project that you're involved in right now. For people who don't know, Grey Daze was a band that Chester Bennington was in before his Linkin Park days out in Arizona. So you guys kind of were there at the very beginning of like everything he was doing. Let's start with a little bit of the history of the band and how you guys all got together.
So initially, Chester and I got together in 1992. He came to audition for our first band and basically showed up. He was 90 pounds soaking wet. He had tight curly hair, was wearing the wire rim glasses, and he didn't look like the typical rock star that I thought he should look like at the time. That I was so arrogantly thought to myself, right? And then he sang. And as soon as he got on the microphone, man, the talent was very apparent. He had that raw, amazing gift right out of the gate. And so we asked him to join the band, and had to talk to his dad and convince his dad to come and make sure everything was okay and give us the green light. And then Chester joined the group, and we started rehearsing from that point forward. And we basically worked together for a lot of years. And he was an amazing guy, amazing vocalist, but amazing friend as well.
There's a history of the band name itself. Any good story behind that?
I wish there was a great story behind it, but we initially called ourselves Lovely's Bleeding, and then we found out that there was another band with that name. So we wrote down a bunch of names on a sheet of paper, and then Chester and I chose Grey Daze off of the sheet of paper, and that's really the story behind the band, the name.
That's you know what, the truth is important. Like, you could make up a story that's ridiculous, but the truth is important. We're trying to be, journalistic integrity here. So
yeah, no, it wasn't a really crazy story on the name, but we just thought it was cool and went with that, and then changed the spelling of it, and you'll see in some of the old flyers and stuff, people on the marquees of clubs we would play or flyers they would put out, they would misspell the name all the time. You'll see that in a lot of the history of the band.
So let's kind of jump forward a couple of years and tell me about that first reunion show and getting back together with everyone.
So before we get to the reunion part, I'll give you a little bit of backstory. So Chester and I were not only really close friends, but we were business partners in Club Tattoo, and we talk all the time. We would play basketball together, go to lunch, dinner, vacation together. So we were very close friends outside of being business partners and bandmates. We had toyed with putting Grey Daze back together for several different times over the past couple decades. First in 2003, then 2007. And then again in 2016 when he called me. He was on the road with Linkin Park, I believe, doing the One More Light tour, or maybe just prior to that. But we used to throw these big parties in Arizona, and we would do these Club Tattoo anniversary parties where we would draw 3,000 to 5,000 people to these events. And Chester and I would get up on stage and we'd play with some of our rock star friends. We'd bring, Story of the Year, Fort Minor, or Alien Ant Farm, and we'd have these kind of other national bands play and these big parties. And he called me one day and said, "We haven't done a Club Tattoo party in a while. I think it'd be cool. I think it's time we do one again." And I said, "All right, that sounds cool." And he said, "And I think we do something special. I think we put Grey Daze back together for that show." And I was like, my ears perked up. I'm like, wow, that actually sounds really cool. I think the timing's right. We're both available to make this happen. So the next few months was trying to figure out the logistics of how we're going to make this happen, because he was on the road. He had some obligations with Linkin Park. We made an announcement in early 2017, I want to say beginning of January. He and I recorded a video and announced to the world that we were putting the band back together. And we had a show booked, and it was in September 23rd of 17 after he got off of his touring obligations. And then as that started to get traction online, I think he got over 1 million views on his Instagram posting that. We started getting offers from around the world to start playing his Grey Daze. And then we had another phone conversation. He might have been in the UK at this time. And he said, actually, I think he was in Germany. And he said, when we do this, we have all these songs. Why don't we just go re-record them? You guys can track them while I'm on the road. I can record vocals while I'm out on the road. And by the time we get to do this reunion show, we'll either be done or very close to done with having this music recorded. So that's how the idea of putting this music out there started. Now, we started to get the tapes in line, get all the music down, and started retracking some of the guitar parts and restructuring some of the songs in February, March of 2017. I started sending stuff back and forth to Chester via email, video phones in the studio. What do you think? And he and I text back and forth. I like this, change this. And that's how it started. Now, we were supposed to have a rehearsal in July of 2017. He had just gotten off the road with LP. He was with his family in Sedona. He had to fly back to LA to do a quick State Farm commercial or something with the band. And then he was going to fly back to Phoenix while his family drove from Sedona down to Phoenix. We were going to meet up for dinner that Saturday and then start band rehearsals on Sunday. And unfortunately, that never happened. Chester was taken from us on July 20th, just a couple days before we were supposed to meet. And everything just kind of got put on pause. As soon as I lost my friend, I just put the Grey Daze stuff out of my mind and tried to deal with the chaos that ensued from trying to make sure that the family was okay and dealt with his passing at that point.
So how much time passed between Chester leaving us and you kind of getting the willpower to say, hey, let's go back and finish what we started?
About 6 to 8 months. And initially when that happened, my thought was, I went to my wife, Thora, and I said, look, I really want to finish the record we were going to do together. And, we're very successful entrepreneurs, so we're just going to fund it ourselves and do it on our own. That was the initial intent. We were just going to finish what we had started. As we worked through that process, we met up with another friend, a mutual friend of Chester's named Renee Mata. He introduced us to executive producer Jay Baumgartner out of NRG. And we kind of, the idea elevated a little bit. Like, let's do this at a great studio. Let's get some real producers involved and retrack this stuff. And as we started to do that, let's start over and take his vocal tracks and literally isolate just the vocal tracks and throw the music to the side for now. And then we will restructure his vocals in a way that makes sense musically. And then we'll write all of the music around his vocals so that his vocals are the spotlight of everything we're doing. The songs are structured, literally built around that vocal foundation, which is kind of an odd way to write a song, right? And it was really difficult to do, to try to wrap our minds around that process. Oh my God, we got to do this for, we started with 17 songs. This is going to take 2-3 years. It ended up taking 2.5 years to do it. And we got several different producers involved and worked on writing each individual song as if it was his own thing, not a bunch of songs that kind of sounded similar. Every single song sounds different. But the reason behind this that we did this was because we wanted to make sure that we curated this music in the right way. We wanted to make sure that we kept the integrity, the lyrical intention, the intent of the band in general intact. And that was really difficult to do without messing it up, right? And we also wanted it to have a more modern relevancy in the music world. We didn't want to just put out demo tape that just kind of polished up. And I think we did our job. 2.5 years, you've listened to the record. I'm hoping that you love what we did with it. And
I have no notes right now.
Okay. Well, we worked really hard to make sure that it stayed really true to what the intention of the band was and something that Chester would have been proud of. And I think we did a great job. I think his fans are going to love it.
For the vocal tracks that you were working from, were these tracks that Chester had recorded recently, or were you going back to previous recordings that you guys had done?
So we did not get a chance to retrack vocals with Chester. He passed before that it was even going to happen. So we went back to the master tapes that we had from 1993 and 1997. And then we chose different songs off of each of those albums. And I think we picked four or five of them from our first album, Wake Me, and then six or seven of them off of the No Sun Today album. And we worked from there.
So when you're going back and you're, rewriting these songs for a more modern appeal, since you've had these songs for years, you've lived with these songs for years, how do you go back and change them in a way that you're not just retreading old ground? How do you find the new ideas?
That's a great question. So if it would have been left all on my plate, I probably would not have been able to do that. But that's one of the reasons we brought in the other producers, was to have them help us find that new vision and that new modern writing that we could apply to these songs. I think if it were left up to Mace, Cristin, and I, we would have ended up with versions that were slightly different than the other ones, but they would have been really close to those versions, and that's not what we wanted. We wanted something that had a new, fresh, modern feel to it. Even though his vocals were old, we wanted this record to sound like he recorded it 2 weeks ago, and I think we got there.
Tell me about the other musicians that kind of helped out on this project. I know, Chris Trainer from Bush was a part of it as well. Like, who was helping with this, and how did you recruit them to the project?
So it all started when I had a conversation with Brian from Korn. Everybody knows him as Head. We ended up having Head and Monkey both play on the song called B12. They did an amazing job. I'll kind of give you a little rundown of everybody that did parts on the record. We had a singer by the name of LP. She sings on a track with Chester, a duet called Shouting Out. We basically, before we got anybody involved, the intention of getting anybody else involved was, is this someone that Chester would have wanted to play with? Did he love this person? Was he a fan of this person? Were they a fan of his? There had to be some connection there. We weren't just going to stack the record with a bunch of famous people. We had those opportunities and we turned them down because it didn't feel right. The intention didn't feel right. So the people we did pick were very carefully curated, and we were very discerning in that process. So I told you about Head and Monkey. I told you about LP. We had Paige Hamilton play on a song called Sickness, which is the new single that's coming out. So we had Marcos Curiel and Chris Trainer from Bush. They both get to play on a song called What's in the Eye. But Chris Trainer actually really fit with the writing style of the band. And we ended up having him play on like 5 songs. He just really fit, and it worked. He plays on Soul Song. He plays on Soul Song. He plays on What's in the Eye. He plays on Just Like Heroin, and Sometimes. And he just was amazing. So, and I know I'm missing some people. Both of my children played drums. Brennan plays on B12. Karsten plays on The Syndrome. And then we brought in Chester's son, Jamie. And Jamie gets to sing backing vocals with his dad on a song called Soul Song, and he does an amazing job. And it's one of those things I'm very proud of, that we were able to connect for Chester on this record.
That must have been just a magical moment in the studio. Was it hard to get through like any of the takes without, kind of tearing up a little bit, or what?
So most of my tears were shed early on as we were stripping these vocals down, and it was just him raw. Yeah, there was a lot of tears. And throughout, the couple years of this process, for sure, there was a lot of tears. Most of mine were early on, and then I got used to the idea of listening to him over and over. And it's one of these things I think about him every single day, and definitely emotional for all of us involved, right? But to bring his son in and have him sing with his father, I just think that was very special. And yeah, it was a magical moment. We're all just looking around in the studio going, wow, this is really cool. This is something that Chester would have been really stoked to have done. And hopefully we get his other children to get to sing on the next record.
That would be amazing. I would love to hear that. The first song that we got to hear off this collection is a song called What's in the Eye. Give us a little background on that song and how it came to be.
So a lot of people don't realize that all of the lyrics for Grey Daze were written by myself and Chester. We wrote them together on almost all the songs. What's in the Eye was a song that I had written initially and brought to band practice on our notepads. And we started playing the song and writing it. And then Chester had a friend in high school who had passed away in a car accident several days before. And I just remember him taking a big black Sharpie and crossing out the chorus that I had written. And then he wrote the words, "Don't go too fast, my friend, or you'll lose control." And then the song kind of took on this whole new meaning of losing people in your life a little bit too early. And that's what that song became about, and is basically a homage to Chester's loss of his friend.
The song that just came out today that everyone's getting to hear for the first time is a song called Sickness. What can you tell us about that one?
So Sickness, first off, Chester wrote the lyrics entirely of this song. Secondly, it's going to be the Chester that people know and have fallen in love with. He's got that angst and that power in this chorus that just smacks you upside the head the first time you hear it. I think his fans are going to freak out when they hear it. Hopefully they love it as much as I do and are proud of it. One of the cool things about through this process is that I'm learning that Chester's fans, yes, they're his fans, but they have this ownership. Like, they take ownership of his legacy and who he is, and they feel very protective over it. And it's kind of cool because I think we did him right by this project. So I'm not scared of that anymore. Initially I was a little worried, how's this going to be perceived? And but going through the process and letting a lot of his hardcore fans listen to it, and you see them tear up and they love it. But sorry, back to the sickness. I think his fans are going to see that old angst that they love about Chester in that song. It's just very powerful. It's got a huge chorus, and it's just awesome. It's raw.
Let's go back to that fear of perception, because, you know, if it was me, I would be terrified to even start a project like this, knowing that, you know, the huge legacy that is in your hands. And from what I've seen, all the feedback that I've seen online is just 100% positive. I haven't seen anyone say a bad thing about it. When did it go from fear to confidence for you that you were doing the right thing?
So that's a great question. Early on, I was just going to finish the record, and I didn't care who liked it or who didn't, right? It was just, this is something we had started off to do together. I'm going to finish it. You like it, great. If you don't, I don't care. Then as we started having record labels contacting us, we did some showcases for some of the big five record labels. And we had Tom Wally from Loma Vista came in, and Tom, of course, had a history with Linkin Park and Warner Brothers, and Tom's this legend in the industry. When Tom listened to it, he's got this amazing poker face, right? I describe it to people like, you have no clue what this guy is thinking. He's really smart. You have this massive amount of respect for him, at least I do. And I said, what do you think? And he just he turned around and he said, well, do you really want to know my opinion? And then I got a little nervous, like, oh man, he's going to just, hate on this thing. He says, what you're doing is really cool. And I think this has the potential to be really great. And I only want to work with you if you're willing to do what it takes to be really great. And that really perked my interest, because we're having all these other record labels just wanting to throw money at the project and exploit it. And that didn't feel right at all. It's just like, no, that's not what the intention of this is. Tom got it right away. And he understood the integrity was intact from the beginning of this thing. And once I knew that he understood what we were doing and was like, this is really good and it has the potential to be great, then I knew we were on the right path. And that's when it changed from a what if to this is, in my mind. I had that confidence going for, like, we're going to make this great no matter how, if it takes us 2 more years. And it's something that I have to give my wife credit for, is she always told me, like, you need to be patient through this process. It's not one of my strong qualities. I'm an impatient bastard. And I want things now. I want it my way. And it's just the way I do things. But this wasn't one of those projects. This took a lot of patience, a lot of time curating it the right way. So once Tom came to us and we had several conversations before we ended up doing the deal, it really came to the forefront of my mind that we're doing this for the right reason. We are curating it correctly. Other people are starting to see that. So we're doing it right. And I felt good about it.
You have everybody on the band on board with this project, obviously. You have Chester's family on board with the project, as was stated in the mini doc that you guys put out. Were there any legal hurdles that you guys had to jump to get all this stuff out? Because, songwriting and credits and everything, it's a very complex web. How do you navigate it? Was there any holdouts? Anybody push back on it?
This is a good time to say no comment. Look, everybody involved. There was a lot of people that... First, let me say, to answer your question, yes, there was a lot of legal issues that we had to get through. The second thing I need to make sure everyone understands is everyone has their own opinion about what they think is the right thing to do and what they think should happen in a scenario like this. And I can understand that and have to respect everyone's position on that thing, on the way they think. So I had to navigate a lot of different opinions that were completely polar opposites in some respects, or some wanted me to go to a different direction with this. Some wanted me to go after more money. And it just wasn't about any of that stuff. So what I did was I took a very neutral position and said, look, I'm going to do what's right for the music on this. If you want to come along for the ride, if you want to come along for the ride, if you want to come along for the ride, this is where I'm going. I'm not going to hate on you. I'm not going to hate on you. I don't care that you don't like her, that she doesn't like him. All that shit doesn't matter. I'm doing this for the right reason. That's where my focus is. You can either get on the boat or not. And that message actually won out, which I was kind of surprised. I thought I would have a lot more arguments with people, but I didn't. And I have to say, the family members, the wives, the ex-wives, everybody came and played nice in the sandbox to get the thing done. And there were moments where I didn't think it was going to happen, but it did. And eventually everyone came together for the right reason.
So the 2 songs are out now. Album's on its way. When's the album coming out?
April 10th. The album Amends drops.
What's the story behind the title for it?
So we chose the song, or we chose the word amends because it's a lyric in one of the songs called More Sky. Mm-hmm. And in the chorus, Chester says, if I had a second chance, I'd make amends. And throughout this process, the lyrical reality, I guess, for lack of a better word, really came to the forefront and became very noticeable about not only the double meanings, but it felt very prophetic as we were listening back to these songs as we worked through them. And I think the collection of songs we put together lyrically really feels like an apology from beyond. And I think if Chester were sitting next to me right now, that specific lyric, if I had a second chance, I'd make amends, is the first thing he would say. I do feel like when he passed, he realized instantaneously that it was a mistake, and that I think he would like to say sorry to everybody for making that choice. And I know he was in a lot of pain and going through his own demons. But I know Chester very, very well, and I know the moment he did it, he felt bad and and realized that was a mistake when it happened.
That kind of leads into the final question I had for this interview, which was, what do you think Chester would think about this whole thing?
I know that Chester is elated with the job we did on the music. I've known him for 30 plus years. He is a dear friend. He is a business partner. He's a confidant. He was a great band member, but he was an even better friend. And I have felt his presence, his love, his energy throughout the process in various degrees, in different situations. As I got to different parts of the songs, I can actually feel his energy. I know he's happy with the job that we did, and I think he's very proud of what we did. And that was really the entire intention behind what we were doing.
The band is Grey Daze. The album Amends, out April 10th. Sean Dowdell, man, thank you so much. This was a blast.
Thanks for having me.
You got it.